Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. Thank you for joining me today. And today we have a special guest. It's Mike Rogers, and he's a conservative activist. Mike, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, John. And
now,
I prefer to call myself a troublemaker, but conservative activist is the official description.
Well, I was going to say that because I have listened to you. Now, why we're here is we're going to talk about this 603 Alliance. But first, I do want to say that I have listened to your Granite Grok show, and I do want to touch base on later in the show about that.
Absolutely.
Because I think you guys do get in trouble sometimes.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we like our opinions to be of bold colors, not pale pastels.
Yeah, and you have a huge following.
You can't please everybody when you do that. No, we don't. The Democrats love us. They love to troll us, and we love to smack them down.
Yeah.
All right, but we're here today to talk about.
Yeah, first I want to talk about this 603 Alliance, and we're going to be talking about it, and it's October 17th. So if you want to go, they have an option to go, don't they?
We do. So the 603 Alliance is an organization that's dedicated to promoting conservative candidates.
Okay.
First up, of course, is the presidential race because its primary comes before all of the other primaries for statewide and then local offices.
So we're very important, New Hampshire.
So not only is New Hampshire very important, and by the way, we've got clones in South Carolina and a couple other places. So this is a spreading theme. But the goal is to promote a conservative candidate through the primary. So do we want to go back to the beginning of the how and the why?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering is, who formed it and how did it form? What are you after, with the 603 Alliance?
Sure. So, every major election cycle we see some variation on the same theme, which is there's the party's preferred pick for some seat or other, usually the major seats like the Senate or the governor or the presidency.
Yes.
And that's typically one pick with maybe a fallback option. And there's the conservatives. We're a raucous, enthusiastic lot, but they are a lot.
Yes.
And so they all have their supporters, and along comes the primary, and of course it's 5%, 5%, 3%, 8%, 25%. And the establishment man wins without even getting a majority. And
that's true.
We thought it was time to try and bend the curve. So we were asking ourselves how. So after last November, when all across the fruited plain, to quote a phrase here, Conservatives won in relatively large numbers in some stunning upsets. David Brat down there in Virginia, I think, and lots of other good conservatives. Here in New Hampshire, we failed to win the governor's office, and we failed to win a Senate seat, which should have been winnable. And, the people that were put up were fine people, but they did not stir the enthusiasm of the conservative base. And there were conservative alternatives, but they didn't make it through the primary. As you know, Andrew Hemingway ran for governor, but didn't make it through the primary, and there were a couple of good conservative options for the Senate seat as well.
Yes.
And you only need a few people to stay home, as happened with Mitt Romney in 2012, and they lose. And it's a big shame. So we asked ourselves, how can we get a conservative through the primary? What can we do to make a difference? And so, there were probably 15 or 20 people meeting in the depths of winter. Most of those are still involved in the organization. There have been a couple of new additions, a couple sit on the sidelines or have got personal things to take care of. But, our core committee has got most of the same members it started out with.
Oh, that's good.
And there are a couple of us from Granite Grok. Skip was involved. He's a bit tied up right now. Steve McDonald is involved. I'm involved. My wife Mama is involved. Prime movers, people like Diane Bitter, Fran Wendelboe, Andrew Hemingway. Up north, Sylvia Smith and Omar Ahern. Jim Kofalt from, I forget which, was it Merrimack Tea Party?
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
So you're talking in the conservative movement, some big names.
Well, yeah, we are. And, Jack Kimball was in early. He's got a lot of things to take care of right now, so he's not as active. We And we got together and we kicked the ideas around, and we said, okay, what can we do? We know who the Conservative candidates are, and we can put out questionnaires. We can find out who they are. We can tell the voters who they are. But everybody has their favorite. That's why you get 5%, 5%, 3%, 8%, going through the primary, and nobody walks away with a win. And nobody walks away with an outright win, but maybe the establishment pick gets the plurality. How do we solve that? And that was the big question we asked ourselves. And so the plan that we hatched was to do a caucus similar to the Iowa caucuses to be held next spring, where we get people together and they group and they regroup according to their first, second, third choices, with the idea being that the people are picking the candidates, not being told who to vote for.
Yes.
And typically, when you look at the field, you've got your favorite, but you've got 2 or 3 others. You say, you know what, if so-and-so won, I'd be really happy about that. And then there'd be a couple others you say, damn, I might stay home if they won.
Yes.
Which is not what you want.
Yeah.
So having said that, the plan then is to hold a caucus, and that's what's happening a week on Saturday, October the 17th. And that is to have a caucus, get as many conservative activist voters as we can together, and have representatives from all of the campaigns that are willing to send them, and to start by grouping the people and shaving off the smallest groups and having them regroup until we have a winner, and we have people that have self-selected effectively behind a candidate and said, you know what, I could support this person. And the conclusion effectively is this is the most electable, we hope conservative, the most electable candidate in the race. Let's go forth and promote that candidate and try and get them through the primary. If, we're expecting hundreds, maybe 1,000. If we get enough people and they go out and all tell their friends, and I'll borrow shamelessly from Governor Sununu, where he said, talk to your friends and neighbors. Yeah. It does make a difference.
It does.
We can bend the curve. We can move a few thousand votes, maybe even 25,000 votes if enough people spread out and it ripples out. And that's enough to turn somebody from an also-ran into a winner or a strong challenger in the primary. So what we're hoping to do is move the needle in the primary.
And people can find out a lot of this at 603alliance.org.
That's correct. That's the main website.
Yeah.
That's the main website of the group. If you happen to type 603alliance.com, you'll still get there.
Okay.
But 603alliance.org is the actual address, yes.
And check-in is at 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 17th. I think that's what check-in begins at 10 a.m.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
At the Hopkinton Fairgrounds.
At the Hopkinton Fairgrounds.
Why did you pick the Hopkinton?
It's central and it's cheap is the short answer.
Oh, that
okay.
Works.
The Hopkinton Fairground gets used for a lot of conservative events. There are Veterans Affairs events there. Not Veterans Affairs. There are veterans events there, rock shows, as well as the usual animal shows and things that you get in a country fairground. They have an arena there that can hold about 1,500 people on bleachers, and plenty of room to group and regroup. Room for tables for the representatives of the candidates, room for media, and so on. And if we're expecting some media there, but at the very least, Granite Grok will be there streaming because we do that kind of thing.
And how would somebody find that if they wanted to listen to it live while you're streaming?
GraniteGrok.com.
That's easy.
That's easy.
Yeah.
We'll have our Ustream channel up, and we'll be running that continuously throughout the day until events conclude. So, back to the caucus. The caucus is going to have speakers. It's going to have some music. Before the caucus begins, there'll be tents outside for some of the candidates, ones that have chosen to create their own rallying point to rev up the troops.
Oh, okay.
But inside they'll all be allowed to have a table and a couple of representatives to help marshal support when each round of caucusing occurs and a couple of groups get dissolved. You're going to want to recruit those folks that are freed up, and so there will be representatives from the campaigns in there. The check-in, as you say, starts at 10 a.m., but most importantly, check-in has started On the website, there is an option to check in advance, and you should do that because we are actually using current voter checklists. We had a generous donor help us out with buying the actual current checklist from the Secretary of State's office as of August.
Oh, okay.
So we know who you are. I don't mean in any unpleasant way. We know enough to know whether you're a Republican or an independent. We'll know whether you've recently taken a Democrat ballot, obviously not who you voted for. And so we're looking to get Republicans and Republican-leaning independents who are registered to vote in New Hampshire to come in. And because it's not an election and because it's not sponsored by the party, it's obviously it's completely non-binding, except that we're asking the caucus goers to say, we got this winning candidate, go forth and spread the news,
yes. Yeah.
and please commit to do so. But the thing is then that we have the checklists, and we will require photo ID because we can, because it's not. In the sense that it's open to the public, but it's not a government-sponsored.
So it's really a private event.
It's not.
To a sense.
I mean, ever been to a Democrat Party event?
Oh yeah.
Photo ID.
I haven't, but yes, I've heard of it.
Photo ID required for most of them.
Yeah, well, unions too. If you want to vote at unions, you've got to show a photo ID.
Precisely. So, all we ask is that you show who you say you are, and the best way to do that and minimize the lines is to do that in advance on 603alliance.org.
So that's what they should do. So if a Prius showed up with a Bernie sticker on the back and wanted to get in, there's going to be probably an issue.
Yeah, we'll have some security folks there as well as marshals to observe the counting. We've got some folks from out of state coming in who will be helping us with the counting because they'll be non-voting members.
Oh, okay. Now, how do you decide how a candidate is eligible?
There is no barrier to entry for the candidate at the caucus. This point I should mention that the 603 Alliance is the political action arm. It doesn't itself gather money, and it doesn't spend money on candidates either. It's purely exists for the purposes of organizing events like this caucus.
Okay.
Joined at the hip, we have the Conservative Business League in New Hampshire, in which businesses or individuals can take memberships, and is our fundraising arm.
Yeah.
Now, this also does paid events for some candidates, and we did especially early on when some candidates were starting up and didn't have their organizations. One of the more conservative candidates called and said, "Can you rustle some folks up at short notice?" And we got them 300 folks.
Wow.
To an event and some media, which took some doing. We have minimum standards for the Conservative Business League. If you don't reach 50% on our checklist, we're not going to put on events for you.
Okay.
But the caucus, the 603 Alliance, the caucus is open to all candidates because we don't want to be accused of bias. I know that the Libertarian folks, for their candidate, have said, the game's rigged for Ted Cruz. No, it isn't. We have no idea who's going to win. If I had to put my money down right now, I might even think it would be Donald Trump, because he's got a very enthusiastic base of grassroots activists who are not happy with the party and the way the party picks candidates.
Oh,
I might say a whole lot less happy than the organizers of the caucus are.
Yes.
And here you've got actually two very interesting ideas in tension. On the one hand, the party has attempted to rig the dates, rig the rules, and arrange things. They were fighting the last war. They saw Ted Cruz as the big threat. They arranged the scheme of things, and they arranged this. To some extent, they encouraged this very broad array of somewhat conservative candidates to see if they couldn't dilute the vote of for Ted Cruz and make him ineligible for the nomination, in order to fail to clear the hurdle, which is a majority of 8 states, I believe, before you can even be considered. They weren't counting on Trump.
No, they weren't.
On the other side, you've got the 603 Alliance, which is intended to have the grassroots pick the most electable and hopefully the most electable conservative candidate that can get through the primary and help to push that candidate through the primary. We didn't figure on it being Trump either, but I can positively tell you the game isn't rigged. The outcome is what the outcome is.
Yes.
And there's going to be observers and monitors. There's going, all the caucus goers. You can't cheat with that many people in the room. The size of the group is the size of the group. Anybody doubts it, they're welcome to count themselves.
But I know a smaller groups, one has a picnic, nice event that I go to every year, but the candidate will say, here, get over, get as 20 people over there, and then they can win on that.
Well, sure.
So what you're saying with 800 to 1,000 people that possibly could be there, that shouldn't happen this time.
Well, there's obviously going to be some premium for organizational skills. If you can get more of your supporters there than the others, you've got a better chance of winning. But again, we don't know how it's going to break when the minor candidates or the ones who get the smallest groups in the early rounds of the caucusing are excluded. Where are those additional voters going to go? We have no idea. We don't know what their first, second, and third picks are.
Yeah.
They do, hopefully, going in, and they'll certainly give it some serious thought as the groups dissolve and reassemble.
Now, are you going to have any candidates speaking?
We don't expect the candidates to actually come and speak. That's kind of a high-risk endeavor from their point of view. And we know that some of the candidates are already committed to events in other parts of the country. Yeah. We also know that there are several candidates in-state or nearby. And we expect that if it looks like it's going their way, they may show up towards the end of the process. But I don't see candidates being there at the beginning, just because, as I say, it's high risk. It's a bit like the Iowa caucus. If you invest your all in that and lose, you're basically done, as happened to a couple of folks in the 2012 cycle.
Yeah.
I was there in Iowa in 2011 for that caucus, for that straw poll. And by the way, it's interesting that as a money-raising venture for the Iowa Republicans is now gone. And why? Because straw polls are manipulable. It's one of the reasons why we're not charging the voters anything to get in. We're charging the candidates something to have their tables and a little more to pitch a tent outside to promote themselves. But inside the arena, there's no charge to get in. You simply have to be a qualified voter. And the reason for that is you've seen the CPAC straw poll, you've seen the Iowa straw poll, you've seen some of the smaller straw polls in this state. And the bottom line is who can buy the most tickets for their supporters or for a busload of students to bend the curve.
Yep.
Well, in this case, you have to be a registered voter. You have to be a Republican-leaning, at least, registered voter. And
now, a New Hampshire registered voter? Or
yes.
So, like the general election, you can't be from Mass and come up here and vote?
No. Well, and I would say it's even harder to do that in our caucus than it is during a general election, because during a general election the number of same-day registrations are quite something, and you see the Massachusetts and other out-of-state cars during those events. The same ones that you see during parades and other things, they happen to go to the polling places. It's really quite that, that's a story all of its own.
Yes.
And as you know, Granite Grok and especially Ed Nail of CNHT have been following voter fraud wherever it leads.
Oh, yes.
And there's plenty of places it leads to out of state, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But no, the out-of-state folks that'll be there are there either as press or they're there as interested helpers to see how this works out, maybe go back and try the same thing back home. So we got some folks from Massachusetts and from Maine, for example, that are going to come and help.
Yeah. And then what that does is then it's more, fair on their part because they aren't voting.
Right.
Yeah, so it keeps everything on the up and up.
Everything's on the up and up. And as I say, you can't buy your way to victory. Maybe you can bring in a busload, but if we've got enough people, and we expect to have enough people, and as the other groups dissolve and regroup, your busload may not count for very much in the bigger bucket.
So what's going to happen is, are you going to pick off one person at a time, or will it be, let's say if there's 10 candidates on the list?
Yeah, and unless we've grossly misestimated the attendance, in the first round, either the two smallest groups or everybody with less than 25 will be shaved off the bottom. And then people...
So that could be a group.
That could be. Then they'll regroup, and assuming at that point you've still got probably 8, 10, a dozen, whatever left, then we'll take off the two smallest groups and the two smallest groups until we get down to, I think it's 5, and then it'll be one at a time until we've got 2 left, which is one is larger than the other, and there's your winner.
Yes. Wow. Now the first vote, so if they pre-register at 603alliance.org,
Yep.
which is highly recommended, the first vote is at 11:30.
That's correct. So
So be there about 11.
You've got to be in there between 10 and 11:30.
Okay.
If you're in line at 11:30, I think we said in line at 11:30. But when we close the registration, the check-in, you've got to be very careful. This is not voter registration.
Once that's shut off at 11:30, that's more new people.
Well, so what we're going to do is we're going to say if you're in line when we declare the cutoff, we'll process you through, but anybody arriving after that time doesn't get in. So if you arrive after 11:30 at the location, you don't get to come in and vote. Sorry.
But you can still participate. I mean, you can't vote, but you can...
I believe it will still be possible to observe, yes.
Yes.
And of course the press will be welcome to cover this.
Yeah.
We expect it's going to be an exciting event, as I say, aside from speakers, music.
Yeah.
Oh, and there'll be food trucks coming around in the lunch hour as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we've got all the stuff organized. We're also hoping to have American Patriot Supplies with their knickknacks and wares. Those of you who are not familiar with Stephen Lee, he's a fixture at gun shows and conservative events.
Yeah, he's been to every one of my debates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love his bumper stickers.
Yeah. Well, he's working for a new small company these days, so for his primary job, and he's real busy. But he has said he'll come to this, so I got my fingers crossed that he makes it, because he always brightens up an event with all of his stuff.
Yes, he does. Yeah, yeah, and I think he does well because of his bumper stickers and T-shirts, and he's got quite a bit going on.
But so you might ask why there and why then would be good questions to ask.
Yes, well, that's what I was wondering. So so you've already said why we have a caucus. I mean, is there any more on the caucus part of it? It just makes it more fair.
It makes sure that everybody has buy-in all the way. You have a straw poll, you have one vote, and you get a result, and you don't like the result, and you walk away and bang, I'm still supporting my candidate.
Yes.
At a caucus, you've got buy-in because you're making the decision. Of course, you can always leave if you're disgusted with all the choices that are left, but by and large, people are going to think hard and pick another group until you finally got the biggest group. And so it's a way of getting buy-in. Like I said, it's the difference between, well, I didn't say this earlier, but it's the difference between herding cats, where you say, we've done our research, we've figured everything out, this is the best candidate, you should vote for Joe. And the voters will say, yeah, right, and go off and do their own thing. You bring them to this, and instead of herding the cats, you're letting the cats choose. They're choosing the better catnip.
So when my candidate, hopefully will reach the top, but if he doesn't, then I have to look at another option, or should look at another option.
Yeah, and most people would. You're going to look at the other options and say, well, you know what, such and such got eliminated, but hey, I quite like these 2 out of the other 10. Let me go with this one, and you hopefully the better ones are going to rise to the top anyway. They're going to attract more supporters, and.
Now, who are the speakers? Are they going to be speaking about each candidate? Is what it's going to be?
We'll allow the campaigns to make a brief pitch for their candidate.
Okay.
Whether that's the candidate in person, which will be relatively few of them, or a speech on behalf of, or a Skype or pre-canned clip. Yeah. But we'll get some kind of input from each of the or most of the candidates, which we can present there. There are going to be other speakers. Trevor Loudon, who's a New Zealander with a great love of this country and not so much love of communism, who's done some great books and some great lectures. He is going to come and speak. For those of you that attended our kickoff meeting in April, which was right after the First in the Nation, Trevor Loudon was one of the star speakers of the event. He really winds people up, and he's got a very good style.
Yes.
You give him a pulpit and he'll mash it to smithereens as he makes his point.
And
I know we've got a couple other speakers in the works, but I don't have the full list at my fingertips, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a small break, but the check-in is at 10 a.m., but you really recommend, and again, it's going to be this Saturday, October 17th.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
from when you go on the air with this, yes, it'll be the immediately following Saturday.
Yeah, so October 17th. So
yes.
Make sure you log on to 603alliance.org and sign up. All right.
Exactly.
Yep, we'll be right back. Oh, welcome back. And again, we're talking with Mike Rogers, and he's a conservative activist, and AKA Troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a group of you that I want to talk about is Granite Grok.
Oh, well, that's more troublemakers than you can shake a stick at.
And you bring a lot of troublemaker guests. Like Kim Morin, she's a big one.
Well, she's not a guest anymore. She's one of our writers. She
okay.
writes for the Examiner, but she also writes for us.
Yeah.
She brings some good, hard-hitting journalism.
Yes, I love following her on Twitter. I finally got one of those Twitter accounts. I still don't know how to use it, but I'm learning.
Yeah, I still think tweeters go in loudspeakers. I've not quite got there,
Yes, yeah. But let's talk a little bit about your Granite Grok, and if somebody wants to see it, it's granitegrok.com, right?
Right, and that's GROK.
Yes.
GraniteGROK.com. And the founder of this is Skip Murphy. He founded it with one of his friends about 8 years ago. Incredible.
Really?
It's under the banner ink of Meet the New Press, and then it became Granite Grok. And there's various folks that have been along here for different lengths of time. Steve McDonald's been with us from the very beginning. I think I joined a few years ago. Rick Olson, the president of the Londonderry Fish and Game Club.
Yeah.
Kimberly Morin, who writes for the Examiner. Kimberly Gilbert just joined us. Jane Cormier, the former state rep and pro-life activist, writes for us occasionally. Scott Morales. Tom Flaherty, a Tea Party activist.
Wow, so you got some big hitters there.
Oh, yeah, we got a whole load of people. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Don Ewing, who's a frequent letter writer to many editors.
Yeah.
He's very erudite. We get really, really great stuff. And as I'm going to get slammed because I'm going to have missed somebody because we have so many good writers. And, the great thing about this is, and Skip sets a fairly loose guideline, but a high standard when he picks people.
Yes.
If you get invited to write for Granite Grok, that means that you've either got very good points or very good writing or some combination.
Yeah.
We're not all the best spellers and grammarists in the world, but we make up for it.
Yeah.
We do real journalism. We get out and look at things. We go to events. We cover them. We were at the Practical Federalism Forum last weekend. As based on the recording date here, this just passing weekend, October the 10th, Saturday the 10th, we'll be at the Republican Liberty Caucus event in Nashua, New Hampshire at the Crown Plaza.
Oh, yeah, that was
the
week before.
If you missed that event, go to granitegrok.com because there'll be some videos going up there of the speakers that we recorded, the interviews that we captured.
Oh, so you're going to be there too because I'm going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, well, you will have been by the time this
Yes.
by the time this airs.
Yeah.
So, yes, we'll see you there, and we will have seen you there.
Yeah, I know you guys always. I think you've covered every one except for my first debate.
Yeah.
You've been to every debate.
And any that we can get to. We cover the big ones. We cover individual campaign events as we can get them. Yeah. We don't always get to all the candidates, but it's not out of bias. We bring them in and to talk to us. We've been out and seen Cruz a couple of times. We've seen Fiorina a couple of times. We saw Perry a couple of times while he was running.
Yeah.
We've had George Pataki in the studio.
Oh.
We interviewed Jim Gilmore at the CNHT picnic.
And what I like about about Granite Grok, your interviews over, the lame, as I call it, media, the lamestream media, the mainstream. I mean, it's just, it's a got you moment. They'll try to do or, to pop somebody off. Where you guys don't do that. I mean, you're right down to the, what we want to hear on the conservative side.
Yeah. We'll ask the tough questions.
Yes.
But we're not out to get them. We want it to be a conversation. We want it to be interesting.
Yeah.
We want them to, speak out about things that interest them. Oh, we didn't score Trump, but we got his campaign manager one weekend, for example, Corey Lewandowski, who was a well-known New Hampshireite.
Yes, yeah.
As I say, we get as close to the action as we can, and we get out there and
now you tape your show, is that right?
We tape our shows, yes.
Yes, I've called in a couple Saturdays.
Right, so Granite Grok runs our podcast called Grok Talk every Saturday from 9 to 11. And that's live, and you can pick it up on a couple of live streaming services and on Ustream for the video of our makeshift studio held at the CNHT offices in Concord, actually.
Yeah.
When we're out live, depending on the quality of the connection, we'll try and live stream the entire event. And we also have a separate camera for recording as a backup, so that we've got two copies typically of the event, and we can usually mash it together. And then there's amateur hour. Amateur hour, professional hour is when Skip goes out and takes Steve or me along, and he's got his big boards and his mixers and his two cameras and tables and stuff. When I go along, I take a little Granite Grok banner, I take my iPad and my camera, and sometimes it's even handheld, and I get what I can. And as it's amateur hour, but I go around with a little briefcase, and Skip goes around with an SUV full of stuff.
But I bet you get a lot of good stuff.
I get my fair share of decent stuff. I figured out how to do Ustream from the iPad and the iPhone. I've got a nice quality camera and a monopod that I take along.
Yeah.
So by and large, we do. We get to a lot of events. We try to get as much conservative coverage as we can. Occasionally, we travel, whether it's CPAC or Right Online or other events.
Now, where you also tape, isn't that where Ed Nail, his office is?
That's what I said, yes, at the CNHT offices in Concord.
Yeah.
That's the Coalition for New Hampshire Taxpayers, a most excellent group that will help you out with, state and local tax problems, provide information. But mostly these days, they've been researching voter fraud. And Ed especially is one of the foremost experts. You do not want to get on his radar.
Yes, and they're not bored.
No.
Yeah, they have a lot to do.
Yeah. You should talk to Ed.
Yes.
If you haven't had Ed in here recently,
I gotta have Ed on.
You should. He's got lots of good stories about the folks that crossed his path and lied about it. That's always a mistake.
Yes. Yeah. Now with Ed too, I understand. All I have to do is introduce him. And then I just sit back, and he's going to finish the show.
He'll chat for a good long while.
Yeah.
On Grok Talk, we have other things. We get authors, we get commentators, we get bloggers from other parts of the country.
Now, do they Skype in or do they call in?
Usually, we call them or they call us on the phone lines at CNHT.
Yeah.
And we've had an author who did a book on Common Core, for example. We've had folks from the original founder of the Weather Channel. Various folks are experts on what's really happening with climate change.
Oh yeah.
AKA weather, as opposed to the alarmists.
Yeah. And can you find that on granitegrok.com?
Absolutely. You can search past editions of Grok Talk and you will find all sorts of things.
So if you type in, if somebody was really interested about the alleged climate change.
Oh, yes. We've got a search box on the front page that'll help you to find past articles or past Grok Talk episodes.
Wow, that takes a lot to keep that together.
It does. Steve McDonald is our main editor, and he's also the scheduler for Grok Talk. He does a wonderful job. He helps to hold the program together. Skip, of course, is the founder, and he's prolific, especially at night with his writings. I do what I can in between work. I work for a startup. I've pretty much worked for different startups the last 20 years, and that's always challenging. So I chip stuff in when I can. Sometimes it's just a cartoon with a few acid comments.
Yes, yeah.
One of my trademarks is the photoshops of some of the political figures.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be a lot of fun.
Slipping Jeb Bradley into a cartoon about the rules are for them, not for us, when they were passing Bradley Care a little while back.
Yeah.
A cartoon of the governess with her minions.
Yep, yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, can they find that also on some of it be online?
Oh yeah, it's posted. It's absolutely posted.
Yeah.
When I say I'm a troublemaker, we do our best to make it all easily accessible. There's a good history on Granite Grok.
So Steve McDonald's the one that gets the guest. I mean, you guys have a lot of guests every week.
We all try to hook the guests, but Steve runs the master schedule.
Oh, okay. So you'll find somebody,
and he's probably the best at finding guests. But we all try to help because it shouldn't be just his job.
Yeah. And who else have you had like in the past? Like some of the presidential candidates.
A lot of them have been through. As I say, in this cycle, we've had Cruz and Fiorina and Pataki and Perry, and there's got to have been others. My memory's blank for the moment. But in each cycle, we get a good percentage of the candidates. I'm going to throw this challenge out there to our friends on the other side. Yes, we'd like to interview Bernie Sanders. Why? Because he's an honest socialist.
He is.
I think because he's honest, he probably won't get elected. From my political point of view, I sure hope he doesn't get elected. But you know what? He's an interesting character. Somebody who actually dares to say what he's thinking. And right now, he's doing well for it.
He is. Yeah, I heard he's given Hillary a good run.
Scaring the hell out of them.
Yes. Yeah, because the Democrats don't know what to do with him, because really he's not a Democrat. He is a socialist.
Well, he's not even a registered Democrat. He's an independent.
So why is he on their ticket?
Well, because he caucuses with them. How many times lately have you heard on TV one Democrat or another being asked to define the difference between the Democrat Party and socialism?
Oh, yeah.
And they can't do it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz can't do it. I think Hillary couldn't do it. Yeah. And there have been others. Why? Because the Democrat Party has moved that far to the left that it's indistinguishable. And so Bernie Sanders actually fits right in with where the party's going. The rest of them are not courageous enough to say so.
Yes. Yeah.
I said, God help us if we get that far into socialism.
Absolutely.
But the man at least has the courage of his convictions, and I praise him for it.
Yeah.
And we would give him a fair interview because you know what? He's fascinating.
Well, now, who's the extreme left guy on MSNBC, which I never watch? I've only seen it on YouTube. As a matter of fact, we don't even get. I got basic cable, so we don't even.
I don't know.
Not Olbermann. It was, but who's Schultz there? He beat the tire out of her, and he kept saying, So I was trying to find out so I could tell everybody to go, YouTube it. He kept after her, saying, tell me the difference between Bernie Sanders and what you guys are doing.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Yes, and she wouldn't do it. She couldn't do it, and she just kept off into left field. And he's an extreme Democrat, but he was pounding on her. I was like, wow, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how they got her as the party chair. I really don't.
I know.
They've had some very interesting party chairs. Yeah. Not that we've exactly excelled with winners ourselves, but at least they've been mostly conservatives and reasonably eloquent.
Yes, yeah.
I loved Michael Steele, actually. He didn't do a great job as party chair, unfortunately, but he was an excellent fellow and a great conservative.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what do you think in our field with so many?
You want me to suggest who I might like? Because that's a bit of a problem for me. As a member of the 603 Alliance Steering Committee, we're not allowed to endorse or advertise a candidate. There are no candidate signs on my yard at the moment, and there won't be until after the caucus, because we've taken this oath. There are a couple of folks that are still helping us very much, but they're not the front of the group because they are actually Cruz supporters. They helped us set everything up, and they've done sterling work, but they're not the face of the group because they've chosen to take positions.
Well, I guess what my real question was is, is there 17? Or is there 16 now with Walker?
It's either 16 or 15. Don't forget Perry and Walker have dropped out.
That's true.
And there's some other fringe guy that's out there.
Is that too many?
It's only too many if you're the party bosses saying, let's put up this moderate guy with a lot of money and let the conservatives dissipate themselves.
Yeah.
From that point of view, if the vote stays split that way, it's too many. But we don't want to tell them they can't be in the race. We want the best person to win.
That's true.
And that's what we're trying to get out of this. There are plenty that I like. I'm grudgingly admiring Trump. I worry about him being just a tad thin-skinned and inclined to go the same way as Obama by executive fiat. But to be honest, the more often he appears, the more he actually begins to sound reasonable. It's interesting.
Yes.
I like Fiorina as an outsider, a challenger. She's got a great message. I love Cruz's consistent constitutionalism. I like Ben Carson. I'm not sure if he's quite going to get to the gravitas for the job, but he's a wonderful man, and again, he's a good conservative on most issues. Marco Rubio, there's some policy issues I'm a bit, not quite convinced on, but he's a great speaker. He's fast on his feet. He can demolish the trolls politely and efficiently.
Well, and I think he can draw, many of them can, well, not Trump, but, that's the only thing that makes me nervous about Trump is, can he draw the independents? Because we have to have the independents.
I honestly think he can. Just anecdotally, from some of the people that I've run into that were previously supporting other fairly conservative candidates and that now say they're supporting Trump, I think there's a serious chance that Trump makes this through to the primary. I don't know if he's going to win our caucus again. Going in, we don't know. We have no clue, and we want it to be that way. If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Trump right now, just anecdotally, for the number of people that I've heard say that they support him. The other one that's got the most enthusiastic support base, I think, is Cruz. But they've all got their attractions. There are multiple folks near the top of the field. Bush has got a good base of support. It's not as big as he'd hoped it was, but he's out there. He's a nice fellow. He did the right things fiscally. Again, do we need another round of compassionate conservatism? Maybe not so much, as government grew under W. Even though I think he was a very good man, I don't think he was a very conservative man.
Yeah, on some issues. Yeah.
On some issues.
Yeah.
They're all out there. George Pataki is a fine man when you meet him. Do I think he's got a prayer in the bigger picture? No.
Yeah.
Bobby Jindal, I absolutely love. The man's on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a troublemaker too.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
If they can't stand up for their principles, if they can't defund Planned Parenthood, if they won't fight for what's right, It's time to be done with the Republican Party. The man was, if you heard him in the junior debate on September the 16th, the man was completely on fire. And he was standing there beside Lindsey Graham, who looked totally nonplussed as, as the basically the stolid establishment senator, trying to say, well, you can't always get everything you want. And, Jindal's view was, well, show a little spine while you're fighting for it, would you?
Yeah.
It was really funny.
That's right.
As I say, there's so many of them, I can't always remember all of their names, but there are a lot of very nice people out there, like Santorum and Huckabee, for example, on the evangelical side.
Yeah.
I think Santorum had his chance and blew it in 2012. I think he was the last conservative standing before Romney got the nod, and he was actually doing very well at that point. I don't think he's anywhere near the same position this time.
Yeah.
And likewise Huckabee, a really nice guy, but I don't think he's got any strength in his position this time either. But it's early; anything can happen.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
well, you say one word, and
say one false word, and they'll be all over you.
Yes.
The interesting thing again, the elephant in the room is Trump. He can say outrageous stuff because people expect him to say outrageous stuff, and his poll numbers don't go down.
Yeah. Well, but many say Reagan. He got his start right here in New Hampshire when he said, "Mr. Moderator, I paid for that mic," and down in Nashua.
Right,
and,
but I mean,
just all you got to do is say one right thing to get everybody like.
Well, thinking of saying one right thing, on the Muslim question, for example, Ben Carson said the right thing. It's not that Muslims don't have the freedom to worship, but damn it, the Constitution and Sharia law are not compatible with each other.
No.
You can come here, you can assimilate, you can worship Allah, but if you insist on applying Sharia law, and especially if you insist on mistreating your womenfolk, there was an old British general back in India who had a remedy for that. You can follow your customs, and we will follow ours. After you beat up your womenfolk, we will try you, and we will hang you.
Yes.
I paraphrase a little, but you get the idea.
Yes.
They can come here, they can assimilate, they can worship whoever they like, but you can't bring Sharia law to the White House.
Yeah.
And I think Ben Carson was bang on.
Of course, they're beating him up for it, but
yes, but he's not backing down.
Yes, and that's what I like about it.
And it's not hurting his poll numbers.
Yeah.
And Trump basically, when one of the people in his meeting said, and the president's a Muslim, and there's all these training camps, and either Trump glossed over it or didn't respond, and they got all upset because he didn't slap them down. A day or so later, Trump said, well, am I obliged to defend the president, to defend his religion? And I don't know what his religion is, by the way. Would he defend me from attacks? I think not.
Yeah.
And I think that really put it in perspective.
Yep.
The president's not going to step forward and defend Donald Trump from attacks, and Donald Trump doesn't have an obligation to defend the president from whatever might be said about him.
Yeah. Now, I know in the last election in 2014, I got up on the floor and spoke at the GOP convention. And I said, regardless of who wins the primary, we have to support, the person. Or I think the primary was over. So that's when I brought up that we have to support the person because, like I tell everybody, we would have constitutional carry and many other bills passed if Walt Havestein won, even though I voted for Andrew Hemingway.
Yeah.
So is there going to be that kind of a theme at the 603 Alliance this weekend?
Yes, and indeed at our kickoff meeting in April, one of the speakers was very raucous about making the point that don't you dare not vote if your candidate doesn't win.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It is.
After the primary, I had my Scott Brown sign up. And
it wasn't easy to put it up either.
and then there were the pro Planned Parenthood advertisements that he ran, which never mind.
Yes, but that's what we have to do.
Yes, we do. First, you fight tooth and nail to get a conservative in because we have a country to save. We need somebody who's going to follow the Constitution. And that really is what the 603 Alliance is about.
Yes.
You can apply all sorts of litmus tests. You can say you're pro-life, you're pro-gun, you're pro-whatever. The real thing is the person a constitutionalist? That's how we judge. But for the caucus, it's about not we judge, but you judge.
Yeah.
You, the people.
Yeah.
And say after that, we hopefully will get an acceptable conservative and give them a boost through the primary.
Yes.
That's all we can do at this stage. But if a conservative doesn't win, we still have to get a Republican in the White House rather than a Democrat, because then at least the Republicans in the House and in the Senate have a chance of getting their bills all the way through.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we can get something.
Yeah. Even then, you're going to need a little more spine from our folks in the Senate.
Yeah. Well, hopefully if we had a Republican president, maybe they would.
Yeah.
Because they have great health insurance. I mean, they could go to the doctor and get one and plan it.
Yeah.
And all at the taxpayers' expense, we're paying for those.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I'm going to close up, and we're at the end of the show. But again, on the 603 Alliance, it's October 17th
at the Hopkinton Fairground, which is right in the middle of the state, and that's the primary reason for choosing that location. It's not far from Concord. It's just off of Route 89.
Yeah.
It's easy to get to from anywhere in the state. You can get to it from almost anywhere in an hour or so, maybe less for most people. Yeah. And this is about you, the people, coming together and picking the most conservative who can win. And we only know that from the level of support they're going to get.
So as long as they're a registered Republican or an independent.
Or a registered independent that's not taken a Democrat ballot recently. And we got the voter checklist, so we'll know that. Just come one, come all. There is no charge. There will be speeches. There will be speakers. There will be music. There will be food trucks outside.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
And it's going to be about 3.5, 4 hours tops?
Probably, yeah. We expect it's going to be all over by early afternoon.
Yeah. So that'd be a lot of fun. And so again, that's 603alliance.org.
Absolutely.
O-R-G. Yeah,
yep.
And if they typed in by accident.com, that'd be fine too.
That'll work too, yeah.
All right. Well, Mike, I can't thank you again enough. It was a real pleasure having you on.
Well, thank you, John. Likewise, it's great to sit and chat with you, actually, because we don't get to do that very often.
No, we'll have to do it again. Well, all right. Well, thank you.
And you can come on Grok Talk, too.
Yes, absolutely. I'll do that.
Thank you.
And again, we had Mike Rogers, and he's a conservative activist, a.k.a. He is a troublemaker. So
you betcha.
Yes, and that's the way to be.
As they say in Alaska.
Yes. and make sure, if you can make it Saturday, make sure you get there. I will be there. So hunt me down and say hi to me if you're over there. Tell me you saw it on the TV show. All right, until next week, I'll see you later. Bye now.